Steve Wemple is celebrating his 20th year with Con Ed, where he's currently the general manager of the utility of the future. And he's been responsible for energy policy issues and was involved in something called the Reforming the Energy Vision, or REV, which I heard a lot about. And when I finally got around to reading it, I go, there are some really smart, thoughtful people helping to design the future. So between what Con Ed is doing and re-envisioning how a utility operates, and the CLCPA, which there'll be a test at the end of today. Who can remember what CLCPA actually stands for? So besides all the work Steve does with Con Ed, he's also the assistant chief of the fire department out in Long Island, which thankfully is on the East Coast rather than the West Coast. So probably not as much action. So Stephen, please take it away.
Great, thanks, Tom. And I'm glad that Noah before me introduced the CLCPA, which is a law that codifies a lot of New York's environmental goals. The one that I'm going to touch on today is the energy storage goal. New York is targeting to have 1,500 megawatts of energy storage operating statewide by 2025, only 5 years away, or 4.5 depending on your perspective, as well as doubling that to 3,000 megawatts by 2030. So the question is, how do we get there? Because those are pretty ambitious goals. While we do have some legacy pumped hydro upstate and one flywheel in the state, what people think of energy storage, which is primarily lithium-ion battery, is still somewhat nascent because of some of the cost issues, as well as some of the permitting issues. So I like to view it in three different use cases. The longest or the most long-lasting one that really got its start first was really customer-sided energy storage, where customers either put in originally lead-acid batteries, but have been adopting to lithium-ion batteries, at least in the New York City area and outdoor locations because of permitting issues. But at a customer site, it can be very useful to both control peak usage, because a lot of utilities, Con Ed in particular, charges most of their fixed costs in a demand charge. So if energy storage can help smooth out the customer's peak, that's a big energy savings for the customer. And it's actually a benefit for the grid as well. So the less peak the customer's load is, the less chance of it requiring distribution upgrades to keep up with it. Another great use case for the customer-sided application is resilience, either to provide some backup power. Batteries have been used for UPS systems to back up critical data centers and the like for a long time, but also when paired with solar. Most people go out and love the idea of solar, but if the distribution grid goes down, that solar is not useful to them unless there's something to help regulate the voltage and maintain 60 hertz, and a battery system, one of those wall packs in conjunction with a PV rooftop system, can allow a customer to really operate and maintain heating, cooling, some level of functionality during a grid outage. Moving sort of up the food chain, the thing that Tom was referring to, the reforming the energy vision, which was really New York's attempt to animate the distribution market that Kristen was referring to. We've been able to do these solicitations for non-wires solutions, or NWSs, where we go out and look for customers to change their behavior. And in a lot of cases, they're installing batteries to help change their behavior, which lets us avoid investments in substations, transformers, feeders, the largest of which was $1 billion, yes, $1 billion investment that we were looking at for a new substation in the Brooklyn and Queens areas, which would have served basically 4 new networks. By reducing the load in those 4 networks, we avoided that $1 billion investment. And one of the first batteries installed in New York City, lithium ion batteries, was Con Edison's 2 megawatt, 12 megawatt hour, where it was a utility owned battery as part of a portfolio of solutions. We went through, I would say, a challenging process with the Fire Department of New York because they were very concerned about putting lithium technology in an urban environment, and finally got a good roadmap to a permittable process. But it was probably a 3.5 year back and forth with them on what were the requirements. We actually had already bought the modules and had to retrofit a lot of the basically a deluge system, some monitoring, some exhaust mechanisms to make the FDNY comfortable. But now, at least for outdoor locations, that's a replicable approach. Several for-profit companies have installed batteries as part of that BQDM and other non-wires solicitations. So that's a real key aspect of how we're basically giving our customers the tools to let them control their energy use while helping avoid significant transmission and distribution investments. So it's sort of a win-win, empowering customers to help us avoid large capital projects. The final use case is probably the on a larger scale, is a key element to getting towards the state's goals, because we're not going to get to 1,500 megawatts or 3,000 megawatts a megawatt or two at a time. We really need to step up the game. And so in 2018, the New York Commission told all of the utilities to do this solicitation for large over 5 megawatt projects. Con Edison's share was 300 megawatts of that. We're still in the final processes of completing the contract with COVID and a few other issues. It took us a little longer to get the T's and C's finalized. We expect to make an announcement hopefully later this month on who the winning projects are. And we're very excited because we think larger grid-connected projects are going to be key to getting to not just the megawatt goal that the state has laid out, but to having the resources to balance the intermittency of some of the renewables, whether it's the offshore wind coming into either New York City or Long Island, or whether it's customer-sited rooftop solar or community solar that you heard about earlier today, or whether it's imported power coming from wind resources upstate that are coming down into the city. So as New York has a 70% renewable goal by 2030 and 100% carbon-free by 2040, the real challenge is to balance that intermittency of wind and solar with the customer load shapes. So we will need energy storage. We will need it downstate in the New York City area. And we think that larger projects installed at our substations are really the way to help us get there. Those larger storage systems will also provide the quick response to respond to a contingency. So right now we tend to turn on, or the New York ISO tends to turn on, a lot of less efficient but quick to start peaking generating units that either run on natural gas or in some cases distillate oil, especially in the wintertime. Using a battery is much better for the environment and can help reduce the need to operate those older, less efficient peaking units. Also, batteries, by providing regulation and the sort of fast movement to allow the sort of the frequency support to maintain 60 hertz and to maintain voltage, means that if we are operating fossil units, they can run much more efficiently. They can be base loaded at their better set points, which lets them basically have a better heat rate, consume less fuel and less emissions. So it's a win-win to integrate these batteries into the grid. Before I take some questions, I'm just going to point, I posted into the chat some links. So there's some information related to Con Ed's non-wires, as well as the New York Commission's energy storage solicitation. A week and a half ago, myself, along with my fellow utility operators throughout New York State, we ran a technical conference with NYSERDA outlining some of the things we're thinking of for our next bulk storage solicitation. So we anticipate filing a petition with the commission also later this month. It might take, the rest of the year for them to go through their formal notice process and solicit comments. And we're hoping for an order from the commission early next year so that we can do our next solicitation in the second quarter of next year for installations to be online by 2025. So Tom, if there's some questions, would be happy to try to take them.
Yes, Stephen, thank you. So how would you rank Con Ed in terms of all the major utilities that are serving major cities in terms of how they are preparing for this future vision? Would you call Con Ed a leader in this?
So Con Edison, I think it's been easy for a lot of the utilities in the Northeast where we divested and sold off our generation to be really focused on a wires and pipes approach. So we've been embracing decarbonization and giving customers the tools to reduce their carbon footprint for roughly a decade now. And so it's easier for us to embrace that concept. Under the Reforming the Energy Vision, the Commission gave us also the financial incentive to seek out these non-wires solutions. So instead of rate basing a transformer, we're actually earning on and treating as a regulatory asset some of the payments we make to customers to reduce their energy usage. So the regulatory compact plus the fact that we've divested our generation and really are enthusiastic to have people invest in renewables lets us be one of the leaders. We have a very dense footprint, so we may not be able to do the same thing that other utilities that are more disparate can do because we don't have a lot of space for windmills and solar panels. We're not going to put solar panels across Central Park or Prospect Park, but we are looking for creative ways to integrate efficiency into our customers' usage.
So do you see yourself building and owning the storage, or will you be working with third-party developers and having financial arrangement with them?
So this latest solicitation was really for us to enter into a 7-year, almost a tolling agreement where we would bid and schedule the resource into the New York ISO markets. And after that 7-year period, ownership control would revert to the developer and owner. So we approach it in both models, both where we're enabling third parties to own their assets. And as I pointed out, our utility-owned project, the 2 megawatt, 12 megawatt hour that went through the permitting investigation and proof of concept with the fire department, that's a utility-owned project. We're building another utility-owned project out on Staten Island to help one of our substations that is experiencing the duck curve, where a lot of customers are using solar and therefore our usage pattern kind of dips in the afternoon because of all of the solar generation. So we think a mix of utility-owned and third-party owned storage is the way to get there. With the state's goals, no one tool or no one use case is going to get us there. We really need to, whether it's storage or renewables in general, have basically deploy all tools that we've got in our toolbox to get to those goals.
So this whole utility delivering electricity to end users is changing. And I think we've all had to learn stuff that we took for granted. Electricity is what came out of the plug receptacle and you paid a bill every month. Much more complicated than that. Yet it is vastly more complicated, particularly with these distributed energy intermittencies. I don't know what's going to happen with 9 gigawatts of wind in the middle of the night. But I'd like to see if you can just say, we've got this covered. You all can relax. While it's not done yet, we're doing what needs to be done.
So we are fully embracing the state's goals. We think we've got a good path to get to the 2030 goals. To be honest, the 2050 goals that are out there, the longer term goals, will require some new technology, whether it's more advanced heat pumps, better ways to control charging. And as you said, the interconnection points to allow offshore wind to come to shore and be used and useful to our customers. So it will be a continuum to get there. So while we don't have all of the answers for the longer term goals, because we're going to still have to think through and work through, and the industry is going to have to give us some more tools in our toolbox, we do believe we'll be able to get there.
That's so great to hear. Thank you for bringing us up to date on what Con Ed is doing.
Thanks, Tom.